was born and raised in the streets, all right? And when I was growing up, my mom was a maid. She worked 18 hours a day. 18 hours a day, making beds, cleaning houses. My biological father, though, he was a bad person. He was physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually abusive. He was a bad person. I didn't live a long time with him whatsoever. He kind of came into my life episodically, just randomly. But let me tell you something, that when he was in my life, the impact that he has, I mean, even now, I think about what my biological father said, what my biological father did, and it still hurts. Some scars, man, like they just never fully heal, you know what I'm saying? I started stealing. I started taking. I was never taught what a good work ethic looks like, and eventually I started hanging out with losers and thugs, and eventually I was the kid that would break into your house, steal your wife's jewelry, and then I'd sell it out on the streets just so that I could buy myself a pair of Nike sneakers, just so that I could get a pair of Levi jeans without holes in it. And one day, it all came crashing down. My brother and I, there was a big bust, and they found a lot of the stuff that we were selling out in the streets, and the investigators came to our house, and they knocked on the door. And my mama opened up that door, and just happened to be right after her shift. And they walked on in, and they saw all the stolen goods, and they put 2 cuffs, one around my brother and one around me, and we ended up going straight into that car. And let me tell you something, and listen to me very clear. My biological father was very violent. Every time he ever got angry, and he'd go out on a rage and he'd come after us, she was a shield. She'd get right in front, and he would just beat her. And you could literally see the scars on her face, on her nose, and on her chin. But never did she cry. But it was that day, as her 2 children, that she worked so hard cleaning beds, cleaning rooms. Her 2 treasures that she was working so hard ended up going up to jail. And it was that day was the first time I had ever heard her weep. I mean, literally, the cry was so deep from the core of her soul, and it was just so deep, and it literally broke her heart. But you know, I was in juvie, I was breaking into people's houses, I was stealing people's stuff, I was selling it in the street. And you know how I got there? I got there because I was too busy listening to what other people were saying about me. And so finally, my brother and I were looking at each other and we're like, well, you know what? Every person has to have a gift of some sort. I thought to myself, you know what? I'm pretty fast. And my brother like, yeah, you know, we're really fast. I mean, every time we stole something, nobody ever caught us, right? Truth. And so what my brother and I started doing is we started making a commitment. We knew that we were good at running, and we started running like 100 miles a week. We decided we were going to go all in. That's the way that we've always been anyway. We either do it all in or we ain't a part of it. Now I remember we started doing 100 miles a week, and then eventually we became the fastest runners in the state of Florida, and eventually we became junior Olympians, and then all of a sudden one day, I ended up being the top runner in the state. When I first joined the Marine Corps, I wanted to be an infantryman. I wanted to kill everything, okay? You go to boot camp, you only want to be an infantryman. You don't want to do anything else. And I didn't get a chance to be an infantryman. They didn't select me to be an infantry officer. And I wanted to quit, and I started feeling and thinking about those same things. When I was a kid, I did a lot of quitting in life. But you know what I decided to do? Maybe I didn't get the infantry. But you know, they gave me another job, and I decided to grow where I was planted. I decided that it didn't matter what they asked me to do. I was going to be the best ever. And I was competing against other infantrymen, other infantry officers, other combat-proven warriors. And I was a support guy, and I came in and I was ooh-rah'd out, man. Anything that they asked me to do, I did it over the top, man. I'm not kidding. And I ended up being the #1 selected officer from my assessment. Can you believe that? And so all of a sudden, I was launched in. 2001 happened. Twin Towers, aircraft, Al-Qaeda. And as we were raking through Iraq, the power of military might, the bursting bombs, destroying absolutely everything. I could just remember looking and seeing all the carnage. Everything was absolutely annihilated. And it was the first time I had ever seen death. And I remember coming back I got recruited. I did some good things in war. Got a couple of medals, some recognition. I was walking through the parking lot. All of a sudden, this Air Force recruiter came up. And he said, "Hey, Marine, what do you think about maybe if you had the opportunity of jumping out of a perfectly good airplane at 25,000 feet on oxygen, night vision goggles, at 0 dark 30 in an austere environment?" I was like, and all of a sudden, I went from Marine, I crossed over to Special Operations, and they trained me everything that he said, from free fall to combat dive to demolition to every weapon known to man, all the munitions, all that bitterness of my upbringing, all the disappointment, all the things that I felt like where I got a raw deal, and I used it as fuel to overcome and to persevere. When people said I couldn't do it, you just watch me. You watch me overcome and persevere. Just watch me. If you want to, you just tell me that I can't do something, and I'm going to go to the ends of the earth and back, and I'm going to prove you wrong. Because I'm going to put my heart and my soul, and I'm going to die trying to accomplish this mission. That's my attitude, man. I'm not going to allow life or anyone to dictate who I am or what I can do.